Welcome to the Big Box PC Game Collectors Hangout of the 3rd of March 2015. Due to a tragic accident, the first couple of minutes footage was devoured by a plate of macaroni cheese, so we'll be bringing you straight into our first show and tell. To summarise our news items, the makers of Banjo-Kazooie have returned with a spiritual successor called Yooka-Laylee, which you can support on Kickstarter now. It will receive a boxed PC release. On a more sombre note, author and developer Michael Berlin, who made classic games such as Suspended and Task Times in Tonetown, is having some health problems. A GoFundMe campaign has been launched to help cover his soaring medical bills. Please chip in a few dollars if you can. You'll find links in the video description below. And now, the games.
What I want to show is this Myst limited edition box, which has a fantastic CD on the front. Or is it a DVD? I think it's a DVD actually. It is exclusive preview, the making of Riven sequel to Myst. I might have watched that actually. Yeah, must be a DVD then. What does it say? Oh no, it's a CD-ROM. CD-ROM into your drive, yeah. So that's cool. It just sits on the front though. I'm not really sure how safe that actually is. It's probably just going to get scratched up if it's like that. Anyway, there's my box. And yeah, everything's falling out of it because it's in a very bad shape. I've also got a box that I love very much, which is my Jazz Jackrabbit box. I'm sure you've all seen it because I've posted about it a lot of times on the group. I think this is the Australian release, so unfortunately it didn't come with the first game, which arguably is the better one, but it did come with a load of other stuff, such as this, I apologise, this amazing black and white manual, yes, exciting, and a load of paraphernalia. Don't know what this actually is. Oh, you can win a printer! Just what the kids want.
That is the least gaming-oriented thing I've ever seen with a game.
Yeah, we need a flipping printer. Maybe it's so you can print out the manual. No, because the manual's here. So there's nothing even printer-related about this. And something else that kind of bugs me about this box is the fact that they've got this stupid slogan on it. It says, he's at it again. But this has no relevance to the game at all. It doesn't say it in the game or anything like that, so I don't know why they put that on there. Anyway, they're my boxes for now. I'll save the rest for later.
What do you collect, Tim? Is it, you had the adventure game, Jumpin' Ones? Is it, do you collect every kind of box games, or?
Mainly I just collect things that look interesting in the shops and on eBay. Things that I can afford. A lot of my stuff is stuff that I used to play in my childhood as well, like obviously Jazz Jackrabbit. There's also Doom, Oddworld, Lego Island, all the Lego games. So that is essentially my collection in a nutshell.
Oddworld is nice. Nice games.
Agreed.
But I guess I have to continue with show and tell, because when you show out Myst, I have to bring this one. It's Pyst.
This game haunts us.
Because this today's show and tell would like, what was it? Games we have in our collection but haven't played yet, and I haven't played Pyst so far, and I'm not sure if I will ever play it. It's a parody of the Myst game, obviously.
It doesn't actually have any gameplay for your reference.
That's okay. I just have it in my collection because I have all the Myst games in my collection as well, so I thought it would be nice to put Pyst beside those. But I have
Hey Bill, have you managed to get yours running?
I have
Is that John Goodman on the back?
Yes, it is. He
What's
does
he
a
doing?
musical number.
I wonder how much they paid him for that work. How was he a
Not
kid?
enough.
Yeah. Interactive
Yeah,
online.
it basically wants his self-respect on the line there, so you know.
Yeah, the text on the lower one is nice. 4 million people have trashed the island. Now it's your turn. Yeah.
It's worth noting that Pyst has a few screens you can flick through and a few musical numbers and so on. But if you were thinking there might be some parodies of Pyst puzzles or anything, there very much are no puzzles in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was nice to have it in the collection as well, but I guess I will never play that one.
So I guess Pascal has moved us on to the main show and tell topic, which is games that you own that are in your collection and you have not played. So go wild. Who has one?
I've got a few here, and these are
Go on, Joel.
Not only are they ones I haven't played, but they're also recent pickups that I got cheap in the thrift stores recently. First one is this Beyond Time. I haven't played it. Looks like a Myst clone to me on the back. It's got a nice little gatefold here. I got this for $1. Did I pay $1? It was $6, I think. This one was like $6. If I find a big box PC game out in the wild for less than $10, I'd grab it pretty much indiscriminately. But Stuart told me that this is an original release or something. I don't really know what that means, but
yeah, you can see. You can see the fact that it has. Right, it has an ad for Oracle, like that sticker on the front, which is another one of their games they put out. That's one way you can tell it's an original release. And then you're missing an ESRB logo, also a rating. So the re-release they put on like an everyone rating or whatever. This one has nothing.
Okay, so that's it's a cool one to have. It's a nice sturdy box. I mean, there's like a big honking piece of cardboard in there. You can't bend it or anything. It's cool, but it was a nice old find, and I found this in a flea market. Still sees called a muck or something. It's like a mech kind of game. Looks like. I don't know anything about it, but it was $1, so I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Found this in a Goodwill a few months ago. Beyond Atlantis, paid $3 for it. Haven't played it. Told this is a sequel to another one. I haven't played the other one either, but amazingly the box is in good shape, so that was a good pickup. And then
is that a Creo title, or am I thinking of something else?
No, it's a sequel to a game called Atlantis: The Lost Tales. And then I think Beyond Atlantis in Europe was called Atlantis 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And then I got this for $1. I got a big box version of Clue. It's got like a holographic front. It's a little banged up. Looks like it's been drugged through the yard a few times. It's one of those CD-ROM first video piece of crap kind of games that I love so much. Looks like fun. I may play this one day, but I've never played it before. Says on 3 CDs. Going back to our old conversation about the number of CDs being important back in the day. But anyway, those are mine. Those are the first ones I grabbed this morning that I had not played yet. So.
Well, all those ones that you grabbed at the thrift store for like $1, I actually went out and like looked for and paid money for. So I'm jealous that you found it at the thrift store.
Joe seems to be reaching for something, so let's see it.
Hi everybody, how you doing? I'm Joe Garrity, Origin Museum, and
Hi Joe.
I thought I'd show a couple things today that not a lot of people have actually seen. This is Privateer, but this is what I believe to be a Korean or a Chinese version. I think it's actually a Chinese version of Privateer. And it's an unusual box. It's incredibly long. I don't know if anyone can see this, but if we have a translator in the group, can somebody tell me whether that is Korean or Chinese? I think it's Korean, but I can't be sure.
Yeah, I guess it's Korean, Joey. I have few Sierra boxes with the same kind of font on it, and it's a Korean one.
I just thought that was very, very unusual. And as long as we're listing games that we haven't played before, I'm going to list a game that no one has played before. This is actually the box for a game called Ultima X Odyssey. This was a game that was supposed to be released in 2004, and EA ended up closing Origin, and they were not able to release the game from that. This was given to me by a friend in Seattle who actually had it delivered. He worked at an electronics boutique, and he actually had it delivered as a pre-game, and it's just the box. But as far as I know, I don't know anyone who actually has this. He saw it in Seattle. He got the letter that said, do not put it up because the game's not going to be released, so he put it in a box and mailed it to me. I thought that was really
That
nice.
is just so unbelievably sad, though.
Yeah, it's
look at
incredibly
it.
sad. It was actually going to be a really decent game. It was going to be small group multiplayer, where basically you could get together with 4 of your friends and go into a 3D environment. So they had some good ideas that went along with it, and it just never came to fruition. But that's mine for today.
Me and my friends talk about that all the time. Like, we've been playing World of Warcraft for 10 years, and I've said that on here before. But it's like, why do they keep with this 40-man, like, BS, like, rating crap that no one, that's hard to get going, that, you know, I really wish that that game had come out, because MMOs need to be like more like old school Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like 6 people max.
That's kind of why I'm enjoying Shroud of the Avatar's pre-alpha. I don't know what it'll be like when the whole thing rolls out, but you can join a party with a handful of people and play with them. Play with them as either PvP, PvE, or whatever. And I kind of like the intimacy that you get there. I mean, if it gets since they're hoping to keep it niche, maybe it will stay that way. Maybe it won't. But I think that's been quite an appealing part of SOTA for me. So there is hope yet. More games?
Can I go?
Yeah.
So, my collection, if you get past a certain year, the chances that I have not played it is extremely high. So I could probably almost pull anything out, and I could say I've not played it. But I got one here, which is really was supposed to be the free choice based on the Sierra theme. This is what I talked about before in the chat. Ulysses and the Golden Fleece by Sierra, because we have a Sierra theme going today. And the nice thing about this is, it is, if you could see that sticker, can you see that? Can you read it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the
IBM PC.
Right. So
graphics adapter. Oh my God, CGA.
So I saw this on eBay like a bunch of years ago, and I had no idea they even made an IBM version of this. I was like, what? There's an IBM version of this game? I must have it, and I got it, basically. I didn't pay like extreme amount for it either, but I just didn't know. I thought all these early games were only Apple, except for like Wizard and the Princess, but apparently they made an IBM version of this one too, so this is nice, and I have not played it. And the other thing I will show is, if I can reach it. So generally I always open my games, but there's a couple which I cannot open for various reasons. I haven't brought myself to open it. This is one of them. I don't know if people have heard of this game. It's called Alice, an Interactive Museum. It's an adventure game that was made in Japan and released in 1994 on CD-ROM. It's like sort of a combination adventure game and I guess art piece of some sort. You can see the screenshots there, like a first-person adventure. But apparently, it's like extremely rare and hard to find. So when I finally found a copy on eBay, it was sealed, and I just have not been able to bring myself to open it because I paid a premium obviously for the seal, and I didn't want to lose it. But at some point, I will open it up when I get this. When this gets to my list of things to play, I'll open it and play it, and then we'll find out what's inside. But the game probably stinks, but it's rare and whatever else, so that's cool. So that's what I have for now.
Stuart, I doubt that you will ever open that one.
Why? Because I just won't get up to it, or because I won't be able to do it?
You will not make it. You will leave that one sealed, I guess.
Possible. I have enough games on the list so that I don't have to. It's like I have to open this one, but we'll see.
It is so incredibly rare, and that is very nice condition box as far as I can judge from over here. So,
thank you.
Right. Other objects. Incidentally, we have Roy waiting outside the room. So if any of us are unable to video at any point or want to cycle out, we have got a queue. I'm not pressuring anyone, just general information. Since I seem to have the screen at the moment, I have a couple of games in my collection that I haven't played. This one's quite interesting. This is Utopia, and it looks kind of awesome. It's when Populous was proved to be successful. There was a whole slew of God games of a similar ilk, I mean, as you can see from the screenshots, even the graphics have a certain something in common. I also vaguely recall that these graphics look somewhat similar to those of Megalomania, another God game that was popular around the same time. This is the IBM PC version. It's a bit of an odd one. I got it from a closing down sale at a store, and it says PC CD-ROM OEM only, no box, please ask, written on the box, which is one of the more mysterious things. Here is that OEM CD-ROM, and here are some floppy disks, including a scenario disk, which are still for the PC, because the reason I haven't played this is because I'd assumed it was for the Amiga, and my Amiga was out of commission for so long. And shares a rather nice manual that's actually a bit large for the box. That's actually now on my to-play-list. And I even have it on CD, so I suppose I'll be having fun with DOSBox for that. I mean, it's hard to see over the scribbling, but the box art's very inviting in a sort of 70s album cover kind of way. The other one,
have you tried restoring that box at all, KG?
I have not. I literally just reached this box out of a larger cardboard box full of boxes today when I had to come up with games that I owned that hadn't played. I
would love high-res photographs of you trying to restore that, and to find out if you
will have to go. The box is already trashed anyway, so there's not much to lose. And the other one I have. Look at this box. It is a marvellous thing. It is a thing of beauty. This is Shattered Light. Battle the darkness of Laria and build your own world. I mean, look at it. It's embossed. Yeah? See how nice that is? Sorry. I got a little carried away there. And it's got a gatefold.
What kind of game is it, KG?
Well, that's the thing. It's an RPG, except it's kind of an RPG builder as well. It's got a very improbable reviewer tagline. It delivers what CRPG fans have been clamoring for: customization from Games Mania, whoever they might be. Delos, a world not unlike our own, until a reckless attempt to capture the primal power of the universe shattered the very laws of nature, transforming Delos into a realm of magic. Now men vie with monsters, sword with sorcery, good with evil, and behind it all is the dreaded entity that was freed when the light shattered, the Laria. You get to create yourself as a hero. Fantasy book fans, go questing like you've only dreamed of, because presumably this is the first RPG you have ever bought for your computer.
Sounds like a very original plot.
Shattered Light's groundbreaking, easy-to-use world builder technology lets you create your own worlds with an easy-to-use map editor. Write your own quests, create your own magic weapons, modify all character statistics, spells, skills, riddles, and more. Write your own NPC dialogue. Fully customize your game. Expand the fantasy world with more than 4,000 terrain tiles. And it has a multiplayer feature that allows you to play with up to eight players online and modify other players' characteristics and attributes on the fly when you host the game on your own machine, which all sounds very appealing. But I'm not sure if I opened this and attempted to play it and it didn't work, or if I just got this, thought it was awesome and never did anything with it. Incidentally, the internals are singularly underwhelming. This was towards the end of the big box age, and the total contents of this box, unless there was a manual or something that I'm missing, this disc and this registration card. So it genuinely doesn't. Oh, and Simon and Schuster Interactive published it, and they seem to have been responsible. They went into games publishing for a little while, and this was one of those games. So yeah, I should probably play it and report back.
I like that one, KJ. We were talking later about Sierra, and we see with Sierra when they started in the 80s to nearly 2000, when they published their games from the folder releases to thin boxes to big boxes, and they moved to big boxes because they need more space for their stuff, for discs, for additional content, brochures, whatever. catalog, and you have a nice example which you find time to time where it's such a huge big box and there's nothing in it. It's just the CD, and that's it. And sometimes you wonder, why do we need big boxes for that kind of content? But
there are screenshots of the game on the net, and it's very, very reminiscent to Ultima 8 or perhaps early UO.
Let's see when this thing was released. Wow, it was Windows 95, 98, Pentium 166. It's by Zablack Entertainment, based in Newton Abbot in Devon, which is not the centre of gaming. I apologise to the good people of Newton Abbot. I'm sure your games are wonderful. No, I'm not finding a date on this exactly. Do you have one? 1999. Again, we'll share Joe's link. But yeah, that actually looks like a really interesting game that I actually really want to play. Both of these two, and I'm not sure why I haven't. So, who else has a game they haven't played?
I can go.
You go first. You go first.
Okay, so as I was browsing through my collection, I just found out that mostly like 70% of the games that I own, I haven't played them yet. But there's one particular game before I start that I wish I hadn't played, but I have, which is Bone Town. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it's the world's first action adventure porno video game. It's very interesting. But now moving on, the first title it's actually a pretty good game. I'm not gonna lie, but the first game I'm gonna show I have so many games that I haven't played, so I'm just gonna show specific ones, and they have a specific reason. Starting off, it's the only sealed big box game that I own, which was the last game I bought. That is Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, the collector's edition. I actually found this in a store, and I would, since it's an online game, I just didn't get the opportunity to open it. And yeah, it comes with a lot of stuff, such as a CD with sounds, an art book, etc., etc. It's actually an interesting box, since it's from last year, I think, or 2013. The next one is...
Hold it up. Hold it still. I'd like to see it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a really nice box. I actually I was like a little bit skeptic, because there was like the PS3 version, the PS4 version, and I was like, oh, that's a nice game. And beside it, with the same box, there was a PC version, which was a little bit expensive, but I bought it anyway. The next up is a game that a lot of people hate me because I have never played it, and I have the complete version. A friend of mine actually sold this to me for like $5, I think, which is Duke Nukem 2. The version with the Kicks version, which it's a very well-known game, but it's one of the few very well-known games that I actually never played it. It has like a big scratch over there. But I never
like those 2D Duke Nukem.
Yeah,
I think they kind of got forgotten in the Wave 3.
I sometimes feel a little bit like an hypocrite, because I always tell my friends, oh, you have to play Duke Nukem, it's awesome, and you have to play like old stuff. Before there was the FPS, there are some games that started out as a different genre of gameplay, and I always tell them to play those games, and sometimes I say, oh, you have to play Duke Nukem 2 and the first Duke Nukem, but I actually never played it, so it's a little bit of hypocrisy for me.
David, have you played the first?
Check out Roy's screen.
The first one.
Duke Nukem 2, right there.
And yeah, this one was the game that it was one of the first games I bought with a bundle that came with Metal Fatigue, one of my favorite games. And I never played it, but I found it interesting that it's like a Doom clone, so to speak, that it's Operation Body Count or just Body Count. And I actually, as a fan of the early first FPS games, I actually never played this game. And it's like I've seen people loving it. I've seen people hating it. I actually never saw like too many people talk about it. But it's like it's interesting, and it's one of the few games that I have that I actually can't play because it comes on floppy disks, and at the moment I don't have a computer with a floppy drive. But yeah, it comes and it comes with like this Ziplocs in here, which I actually like it.
If they're 3.5-inch floppies, you can get a USB 3.5-inch floppy disk for about €10 online.
Yeah, no, I actually saw the post that you guys posted it in, and it's actually funny because of all the FPS of that era that I have or that I've seen, I never seen one that had like this little advertisement like here that says the technology licensed from id Software creators of Wolfenstein 3D. So I'm guessing Doom wasn't out yet, but yeah, it's one of the few games that I chose these games because it's games that are from franchises which I love and types of genres of games that I love, but I actually never played them because most of the time when I buy a game I buy a bundle of games. So I buy for like 10 games for like only 2 or 3 that I actually like or played. And so yeah, that's basically it.
That's some really interesting examples. I didn't actually realise there was a Kix release of Duke Nukem 2, so I have learned something about the wonderful world of Kix, which I'm increasingly developing an obsession with, strangely.
And you definitely have to play Duke Nukem, David, because the first both games are awesome. I mean, there are no first-person shooters, more platform, jump one action kind of games, but still highly enjoyable.
No, I've seen the walkthrough of both of them. I think I spend like each week I spend like 2 or 3 hours just watching walkthroughs of games that I actually own but never played, and some games that interest me are just speedruns of them.
Right, do we have anyone else who has something to show?
So I have something to show.
Yep.
It's called RoboQuest by ProKid. To my knowledge, there is only one video of this game on the internet, and you can't even find it on Moby Games. It's Doom-like shooter. It's kind of a weird game because you have some kind of weird magic staff, and you shoot like bees and some random flying like creatures or something. And it's pretty interesting because it's only one copy I ever found on eBay. It's all sealed. So yeah, that's pretty interesting game, I think. RoboQuest by Kid Pro. Yeah, and you can, if I'm not mistaken, you can make your own robot in there and play with it. So yeah, it's kind of like RPG-ish shooter, I guess. So yeah, that's it.
Roy's got a video down there of it too, if you want to see it. KG, you're muted at the moment.
Yeah, your mouth is moving. You're talking on mute that whole time.
Okay, can we have one more and then we'll move on to the first main topic?
I have one here.
Cool.
I have also a lot of games in my collection I haven't played yet. This one has always seemed interesting, but it comes on 5.25-inch discs, so I can't play it. I don't have the computer for that. But I love the artwork on this one. Escape from Hell. Yeah. And the screenshots on the back as well just look super cool. It's one where you descend into hell, apparently. So it's not a typical RPG where you fight orcs and trolls. It has an interesting line on the back where it says, "Can't get excited about orcs, trolls, and half-elves. how about easing the torments of a kinky evangelist or a sadistic physical education teacher? So I'm like, well, this sounds like really interesting games. But like I said, it comes on 5.25-inch floppies, and I can't play that. I don't have.
Oh no.
So maybe one day I'll have an old computer again, and hopefully the disc will work.
Are there any screenshots on it?
Yeah, on the back.
On the back.
But I think it's more art, or I don't know. Really sure if it's gameplay or not. I'm not sure.
No, it looks gameplay-ish.
Maybe
Maybe not.
Few other ones, but except it's more like artwork. I'm not sure. But
I vaguely remember seeing ads for that game in gaming magazines many moons ago. So those screenshots are hitting me in this space where I think I've seen them before somewhere.
Okay. I heard somewhere that it had something to do with the Wasteland engine, but I'm not sure about that. Is it just
Once again, Roy's got us video.
But anyway, that's my pick for
Oh, it looks very much like 2400 AD by Origin, actually.
Is there a way to prioritize his video so that we can like have it while he's playing it, or?
Just click through. I've already prioritized it for the channel.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Looks sort of like Bard's Tale or something, kind of.
Yeah, looks like a Gold Box game or something.
Nice graphics, though. Really thoughtful artwork.
How is he doing this?
Screen sharing feature.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome having examples of these games to see. This is great.
I agree. This is awesome.
It does look like Wasteland also, by the way.
Yeah.
Except with more text.
Yeah, instead of a book.
Genghis Khan grunt.
And a Valkyrie. Whoa, baby.
Yeah, I don't think that shield's going to do her a whole lot of good.
That arm is kind of leaving her vulnerable in the vulnerables. It's Richard and Alan's escape from hell, in fact. She's an Oriental Valkyrie, so...
She's very grey.
Yeah.
She's not looking too well, is she? Well, maybe she's...
A little,
this fell.
I don't know if you guys saw that a second ago. It said, the Oriental lady says, when you showed the Valkyrie, it's a person from my country named Ach Chu who's stuck in limbo. It's a little racist to me.
Yeah, yep. On the other hand, at least everyone's grey. I mean, it's kind of equal.
That's a suggestive picture right there, if I've ever seen one.
I'm suddenly compelled to play this game.
Yeah, no, it looks like the most awesome game ever, and it's terrible.
You find a garbage can lid. It seems strong enough to be used as a shield. Okay, and on that note, I do not think we're going to top our Unplayed that as far as our Unplayed games go. So let's move on to one of our big headline topics, all things Sierra. Now, this is a huge one, and I'm sure it's one that we'll be coming back to again in the future. But let's. Does anyone have anything from early on in Sierra's past? We're talking floppy disks in plastic bags here.
We all look at Pascal's video down there.
Yeah. Who's got a bit of history to tell us about the very beginnings of Sierra? Pascal? Can you educate us?
Where to start? This is such a huge topic. I mean, Sierra did so many things back then, developing from a two-people business, having the idea, creating games, to one of the largest publisher for interactive gaming software in about 20 years, from the late 70s to like 2000, before they were acquired by another company. But not sure where to start. I mean, we can really have a 4-hour-long discussion about Sierra, I guess. They are so, what to say, they are known for so many things they did. They influenced video gaming a lot. They influenced publishing of video gaming a lot. They did a lot of things besides gaming. Wow. That's maybe why.
Just one comment. The book Hackers by Stephen Levy has a really good, I thought it was a really good introduction to the early days of Sierra. Like, he spends like a third of the book on it, and he talks about people that you may not have heard of otherwise because they're not like adventure game guys. There's people that developed a lot of the early titles that they had, the action titles like Jawbreaker and I can't even think what they are, Crossfire and Mineshaft and all that stuff, which you don't think about, but that probably propelled a lot of the actual adventure gaming stuff, in terms of funding it, until they were able to just sort of turn solely to that for a long time. But to your point, Pascal, it seems like they had like a sort of a curved history, in terms of a graph. Like in the beginning, it was like tons of random stuff that they made. I mean, I guess Ken and Roberto was interested in the adventure games, but lots of different things. Then in the middle of their history, they focused like solely on adventure games pretty much, with a couple of odd titles there like Zilliard and Slipheed and A10 Tank Killer or whatever else. And then towards the end, it was like they went back to like crazy publishing like every single random thing you could think of, and like home design programs and cooking programs and like all these other things that I didn't care about personally. And I was like, yeah, well, Half-Life was even after that. I think that was like already after Sierra was dead as a company, and it was like just the name. But even when it was still Ken Williams running it, I think they thought like the adventure market is too niche and they need to branch out into lots of other things. And from my perspective, they're just wasting their time. Like I got the later catalogs, like I don't know, a third of it is adventure games and 2/3 is other stuff that I was like, who cares about this? Like flip, and let's get to the good stuff here. And I don't know if that was good for them or if that was bad. I don't know.
I think it's quite interesting that Sierra basically helped create the very image we have of the graphic adventure game, and saw it right through to its decline in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we're kind of seeing the remnant parts of Sierra around for its resurgence. Although I'm sure we'll get to that a bit later. Of course, Sierra did publish some other games, including, and I swear this is going to be the only mention of Origin in this session, so Joe had better exploit it if he's going to, including some from the company that would become Origin Systems.
That is correct, KG. You're absolutely right. I didn't want to jump in on this since the resident experts are all here, and I'd rather hear them talk about their different areas. But if you would leave a moment open for me to jump in that regard, I'd love to. But let's get back to the history of Sierra. I want to hear about that.
I mean, what is Stuart said it very precise. They did so many different things, and not the games they were really known for. If you look up Sierra catalog, what they did in the years, it is incredible. And so many stuff I've never seen or heard about before. Typewriter software, and I don't know what kind of software they did. But what they are really known for, I mean, they write a lot of adventure game history. We mentioned the Mystery House, first graphic adventure game that was ever released. Started like Roberta. It said that Roberta was inspired by Colossal Cave Adventure, which we know was the first text adventure that was ever released. He wanted to have graphics there. It was not the first game with graphics at all. RPG games at that time, and there were a few early RPG games available with graphics, but Mystery House was the first graphic adventure game. That was 1980. Same year, The Wizard and the Princess was released. It was the first full-colored graphic adventure game of the history. 1 year later, in 81, Soft Porn Adventure was released. It was one of the first adult-themed computer games in history. This, guess, was really a huge thing back then, at that time. If you head 1 year forward to 82, it was Time Zone. Time Zone was really a huge thing in a lot of ways. It was like, it said that it's still the most expensive game of all time because it was one of the first. It was the first game with a bigger development team. Back at then, games were mainly done by one, maybe two people in about a month or so. Most time, it was the development process was less a month, and Time Zone was a game. It said like 12 to 14 months in development. A bigger team was released on 6 discs, double size, so 12 discs in space. So everything Time Zone did back then was like 10 to 15 times bigger than ever done before. It has like over 1,400 screens. Average games back then had like 90 screens. You can go through and have your adventure. So they did so many things. Not all of them were successful. Time Zone definitely was not a successful title. It was sold for $100. That was again more than average games or games were sold for back then. But they tried a lot of new things. They set standards. They wrote gaming history, and we know them for so many successful series: King's Quest, Police Quest, Space Quest, Larry, Quest for Glory, Laura Bow. I mean, everyone has played an Sierra adventure game.
So just to pick up on that, because you covered the early part of it really well. Other firsts, like King's Quest, was certainly one of the first third-person adventure games, if not the first. We actually could move the character around the screen. That by itself was like so cool at the time. I remember it was amazing. They pushed hardware tremendously. So they were one of the first companies to take advantage of VGA and really push it. They were one of the first companies that they're probably the first to really take advantage of the sound cards and really push the sound cards. They're even selling the sound cards for the sound card companies to make sure you can have a sound card, you can get the full experience out of the game. First with the the early ad lib type stuff, and then all the speech later on. They heavily pushed CD-ROM technology. Even before that, they heavily pushed 3.5-inch discs, because in the PC world, it was 5 1/4-inch discs, and like Atari ST and Amiga was 3.5, but for PC it was 5 1/4. And I remember they put both sides discs in the box. And when I was a 5 1/4-inch guy, and I was like, what do I do with these squares here? Like, put away somewhere. But then years later, I was like so happy that they did that, because then like that was so much more convenient to play them again. So they were pioneers in so many respects when it came to hardware, especially, and then also the point and click, the mouse control with the icons. They were certainly one of the first that did that. I don't know if the first, but certainly one of the first, and they're the ones that popularized it. So they were pioneers in just so many respects.
Totally agree.
I think what's quite interesting, and you touched on this before, is that they also brought it. They also acted as a publisher, bringing in games from regions that weren't kind of mainstreamed into the US games publishing market, because originally global games publishing was quite disparate. You didn't have the sort of international releases you do. People, if you were lucky, people would just a distributor would just slap a sticker on a box, and then import it and sell it to you at a significant markup. But what the game I've been showing my example, Sierra 5 1/4, 3.5-inch disc from here, is my copy of Sorceria, which is one of several, along with Dexter and is one of several games that they released that were originally released in Japan. This is by Nihon Falcon, and lo and behold, it has the AT version, again pushing the Paradeal system, but and it's not what you think of as a Sierra game. It's a kind of a side-scrolling RPG. It's not what you think of as a typical JRPG either. But it was a rather well, to me personally, a rather interesting game. And it brought the notion of Japanese computer games to the US. And similarly, they later worked with Cocktail Vision in France, and I'm sure someone will raise some of their games in the future. So I think that's a fairly important aspect of their role. Baton, anyone?
Well, let's get on with showing some of these great games.
Well, Joe, so I have to say quickly, in terms of the Origin stuff, I think you said before that the reason why Sierra published some of the Origin games was they were the only ones that were willing to make the big boxes and the feelies and stuff and the specifications that Richard Garriott would accept. So Time Zone that Pascal mentioned before, I mean, it was a really big box also, in addition to everything else, and I think it's the same size box as the Ultimate 2, if I'm not mistaken. Or it's pretty close if it's not the same.
Does anybody here have time zone that they can show?
Yeah, Pascal has that.
Pascal's reading for something.
Dig, Pascal, dig. I want to see it.
I actually just got a copy of it myself the other week.
Wow, you guys have treasure. Hold still.
So that is
Do you have Ultimate 2 also? You can put it next to it?
No, because as you know, I'm not collecting RPG games.
All right, let me get mine and check so we can.
Okay, here's Joe's Ultimate 2. Put it sideways, please, Joe. That side. No, the thin side. Never mind. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it is about the same width, I think. So it is very much the same box style.
I never knew it came with a poster.
Wow, it came with a double-sided poster.
And it said, yeah, it is a thin box. It is especially like the Ultima box Stuart mentioned. I guess it has the same size of it. Maybe Time Zone is a bit larger, but I'm not sure about that. But Stuart will show us.
No, I'd say that. Oh, here we have an actual example.
Good.
They are the same. That's some lovely box art too. And both of them are kind of to do with time travel. I mean, yeah.
It's not the size of the box, it's how you use it.
Indeed. We possibly ought to make that the local motto.
Yeah, but then just in terms of, aside from all the innovation, just in terms of all the output they cranked out, nice cloth map there, Joe. In terms of all the output they cranked out over the years in the adventure game world, aside from all the other stuff they did, all the series, I mean, just, everybody knows them: King's Quest, Space Quest, Police Quest, Quest for Glory, Leisure Suit Larry, and all the others that people don't know about so much, Conquests and Manhunter, and, I can go on probably for a long time. There's just, their output was just so prolific over a relatively short span of years. I mean, that's really why they're so beloved. It's just some of these great series and the great people that worked on them, like, Al Lowe and the two guys from Andromeda, and Ken and Roberta Williams, and Jim Walls, and everybody else out there, Laurie and Corey Cole, etc.
You say a relatively short time span. I think Sierra has one of the biggest ongoing time blocks in the video game industry. I mean, if you put EA aside, and they were just buying everybody else's company, Sierra went on with, they started when? 1980, right?
Yeah. But most of the, all the series...
They officially released their last game.
1998 or something like that, in terms of, before they were bought, Gabriel Knight 3 is 1999, I think.
That's unbelievable. It's a 20-year span.
Right, but what I meant was, if you think about it, King's Quest 1 came out in 1984, and they were really started rolling with having a bunch of series that were going on together maybe 1987. I'm thinking Heroes Quest was 1988, I think. I mean, they really had all their series going in parallel around 1987, and they were going super strong. I would say from 87 till about 92 or 3 was when a huge amount of their output came out, and they had some stragglers that choked in after that, after they were really diversified more. But in terms of that core period where they were just doing adventure games, I think it was a relatively short period, actually. At least from my memory.
Evolutionarily, they were so specialized in adventure games. From my personal experience, what it actually ended up happening was they were rolling with these adventure games. They were popular. People were buying them. They were cool. The graphics were awesome. And then Doom came out. Then Doom was just changed everything. Everyone was playing Doom, and they were like, holy crap. And then Sierra, I don't know that they really had an answer for that. And
John Romero is never invited back now.
It's not their fault, but all of a sudden, first-person shooters were what was selling completely, and it just kind of drowned the adventure games out.
I think also you kind of had an evolving profile, not only of not so much of users per se, but of marketing and of the price lowering of PCs to come more into line with consoles. Which again, I think you had potentially some of the console market drifting towards PCs, and that probably had an effect on the market as well. Although that's probably a subject for an entire episode of its own.
Yeah, the question in my mind, really, this is the general question: is it really true that the market for adventure games declined, or even that it relatively declined? Because I think most people would say that Doom took away the whole audience of adventure gamers. To where like the audience expanded, and the amount of people that want to play Doom-like games were greater than adventure games, let's say. But my question is that really true, or was that just a perception of the different, the suits and the marketing guys or whatever else, or was it true enough that?
I don't claim it as anything more than my personal perception or like my personal history of playing. I just kind of lost interest in adventure games when Doom came out, and just kind of rediscovered an interest in them pretty recently.
No, but what you're saying is certainly like the popular perception, because that's basically why a lot of these companies weren't able to get funding to make adventure games, is because people were saying that folks are not interested in playing them. So the ones that were making adventure games were like struggling pretty mightily, and a lot of the good studios that were making them got shut down or they got absorbed or whatever else. There was always a few guys, a few companies still making them throughout the years continuously, but it was not like necessarily getting a lot of funding or marketing.
But LucasArts still did incredibly well with theirs, and all of their some of their masterpieces came out after Doom. Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle and the Day of the Dead one, Manny.
But where?
Grim Fandango, but that had its weird control system. They already and it was pretty much the Grim Fandango and the last Monkey Island game. Between them, the developers knew they would be pretty much the last death knell of adventure games. You got interviews with developers at the time of release saying, "Yeah, we know this is it." And I think that touches on something that we can't really underplay. The media love a good story, and the games press was starting to do really quite well for it. Well, was doing quite well for itself at the time. And beyond my personal gratitude for that income stream, there was a certain amount of drama to be drummed up in saying this genre is dead. This developer's hyperbolic. This person is insane. This is popular. This guy's a god. Let's set up a false rivalry. It's like music magazines that decide they're going to set up some kind of petty fight between bands. And I think
it still is today.
Well, yes. There are attempts at being responsible, and I hope people kind of like that sort of narrative-informed stuff. And I think we have a copy of Time Zone on screen now. Over in Roy's window, everyone. This is what the very expensive Time Zone looked like.
Yeah, I found some footage.
You awakened from a heavy night's sleep.
Yeah, it's like Grim Fandango, was a masterpiece, but it was also kind of remembered as being a catastrophic, failure of a sales piece, and I think a lot of those games are worth a lot to us, or because, if I think about the last adventure games that came out, like Neverhood, which sold terribly, Grim Fandango sold horribly, Full Throttle was an excellent game, but I don't remember it selling, extremely well either. I don't think it was, a runaway smash hit.
Can you say that for sure? I remember the time when I couldn't get away from the Neverhood. It was literally all around me. Microsoft was pushing that as hard as they could. Do you have any numbers that prove that they weren't big sellers?
Only that it's considered a rare game now, or a rare-ish game. There's not many of them.
I wasn't aware of
it at the time of release. But that's something.
Anecdotally, I agree, because one thing about Sierra, going back to Sierra for a second, they also had the standardized boxes, and they all said on them, it's often they're the same size. They all said a 3D animated adventure game, maybe for adults or whatever it was, but 3D, they were all the same type of thing. When you saw Sierra box in the store, you knew it was an adventure game. You knew what you were getting. I remember I went to the store and I saw Full Throttle, and I was like, I have no idea what kind of game this is. It doesn't look like any adventure game I've ever seen before. It looks like some kind of 3D action game or something. And I don't think they wanted to advertise, say, hey, this is an adventure game, because they're afraid people won't buy it then. They're just trying to sell it for the atmosphere. And as a result, an adventure gamer, I was like, I don't know. Same thing happened to be a Circle of Blood, Broken Sword 1. It doesn't look like an adventure game from like the cover or anything. Same thing with Grim Fandango. So I think actually the standardization and the fact that like in Sierra, you knew like Sierra's putting out something else that has this Sierra level of quality, theoretically at least, and I think they pretty much did. And I can trust that whatever they put out is going to be something that I'll enjoy playing. Whereas in general, I think the market fragmented quite a bit with the different shaped boxes and the different, wildly different marketing, and you just didn't know what you were getting at a certain point.
Here's on Wikipedia, I've got Neverhood, which is freaking Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt, of course. But this is probably fairly standard. The Neverhood sold only about 42,000 copies. An additional 600,000 OEM copies were purchased by Gateway and pre-installed on their computers. Over the years, it turned out Neverhood also received a huge fan base in Russia and Iran, and has resulted massive bootlegging, copying, and distribution, and blah, 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 blah. So 42,000 copies is pretty abysmal for a game sale.
Pretty abysmal. David also posted that Grim Fandango sold between 100 and 500,000 units.
That was quite a lot, but they'd already pulled funding for more games like that by that point, based on the interviews I'd seen. So it didn't matter how well it did; the future was doomed.
But is that lifetime sales, or is that like in the first year? Because they still sell DVD cases of it, so that's what I'd be curious about. Because sometimes these things have a long tail.
I think it's the total. It's the total, I think.
Yeah, so it comes out, nobody buys it the first couple of years, it becomes a cult classic, and then if they're still selling it somewhere, if they reissue it, then they can take a nice long-term profit. But it doesn't mean anybody bought it in the beginning. I don't know.
I'm gonna pull this back onto topic because we've got onto the changing market for adventure games, and while that was important to Sierra, it's we're kind of drifting off to Microsoft and Lucas a great deal. Actually, you were talking about standardized boxes and knowing what you get, Stuart. I mean, along with Sorcerian, here I have the Laffy Utilities and Johnny Castaway, which I was just trying to pick up the 3 least Sierra games in my collection. I've gathered the Laffy Utilities. Actually, this is the international version of the Laffy Utilities, which I wasn't aware there were different versions. It certainly just looks like a sticker slapped onto the US version, but it has yeah, so we'll have to find out what the differences are there.
Less funny jokes.
This was Allo's jokes database and a parody of the Northern Utilities, themed after the Larry games, rather than being any sort of adventure game. And then you've got Johnny Castaway, which is arguably the least good value title I ever bought. It's an interactive screensaver. Pascal is a great fan of it, I know, because it appears in his icon, and it is very amusing. It was back when we had CRT monitors still worried about screen burning. Although I'm never sure, with Ireland positioning, I was never quite sure of how good it'd be against that. And it was basically a soap opera of this guy on a desert island. And the thing is, it was priced very similarly to a full-on adventure game, and it was boxed like one. So yeah, that was a bit of an unusual one. I continue to be quite ambivalent about this Windows 8.1 title.
In terms of investment, I think that was the best investment you made, though. You felt like you got low return then, but now you got a good return.
It's not even very much in the box. Hang on, let me have a look. In the box, it's the inner box, much plainer than it was sort of intermediate era. Because it was when Sierra were moving towards the larger boxes. 1, count them, discs. Some instructions. Sorry, we seem to have lapsed on show and tell. And some random bumps. So very little to say for it here. But I mean, it's kind of intriguing. But is it quite right? So it didn't sell very well, I take it. Yet.
Your point is well taken, though, about the standardization. To the point I made before. I mean, I guess for the Sierra world, I owned so many Sierra releases, and I had so many copies of the Sierra catalog that like I knew very clearly like Johnny Castaway is a screensaver, and Laffy Utilities is not a game, and that type of thing. But it's a good point, and I guess the Sierra output, like I said before, was so prolific compared to LucasArts output. How many adventure games did LucasArts have in the same period? Like maybe 10. And Sierra had like 30 or 40 or some very large number. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it seemed like it was pretty high up there. So that's the other thing. If you have
numbers of teams working in parallel, which really helped, so you could buy a new King's Quest game and a new Quest for Glory game and a new Larry game, and you could, particularly around when King's Quest V came around. I remember a load of there was this whole stack of Larry 5 and Willy Beamish and King's Quest V and a bunch of other things were all released around the same time, or at least reached my bit of Europe at the time.
I did pull a quick thing to show that Pascal will have to explain, because he's the one that explained it to me. But I have my King's Quest 4 that I've shown before, which is the 512K version. You probably can't read it, it's probably too blurry. And then recently I picked up the 256K version. And Pascal will have to tell you what the difference is. But I stole this from some poor soul on eBay. Poor guy, $7. Got lucky. But I don't know what the difference is between the two, but this was a transitional title apparently. So
yeah, the difference is that Sierra had different engines for creating their games, and King's Quest 4 was released at the time where they still had the old game interpreter and the new one, and they were not sure about how the new interpreted game which is runnable on older systems, so they released King's Quest 4 in both versions. They created that in both versions, the new and the old engine. It changed a bit. If you Google out the difference, it's like graphics, like sounds, like controls, and so it's modified a bit there. So this game was just released in these two versions, and just about these two different game engines they used back then.
Yeah, the older version was called AGI, Adventure Game Interpreter. I'm sure you know that. And the new version was SCI, Sierra's Creative Interpreter. But the graphics were a little bit better, like higher resolution in SCI. It also supported mouse control limited, like you could click on a place on the screen and the guy would walk there. But the biggest advance to me was that in the old interpreter, when you typed something, what you wanted the guy to do, it didn't freeze the action. You just typed on the bottom of the screen. So like there was like some enemy running towards you, like about to rip you apart, and you're trying to type like throw like something to whatever it was while you're about to be killed, and you had like 2 seconds to do it. In the new interpreter, when you press the key, it would freeze everything and let you type whatever you wanted. So that was like the big advance. So the old one, I remember you had to like sort of pre-type whatever you wanted to type, and then go into the room and then like hit enter at the right time. Otherwise, you'd be dead. So that was a big advantage of the new interpreter.
I was shocked that I was doing research on the Zorks that I'm going to talk about later when we talk about the tech stuff. And I was shocked when I was looking through color computer stuff, because I was a big color computer player. The first Sierra game I ever played was Leisure Suit Larry Land of the Lounge Lizards on the Color Computer 3. I did not. King's Quest 4 Sierra put out on the Color Computer 3, and I'm shocked that they were still supporting that computer that kind of late into its. I mean, that's pretty late for that computer, it seems like. But they kind of supported that Color Computer all the way up until the end.
Well, I'm not surprised Leisure Suit Larry was the first game you bought.
I didn't. Well, let's just say I don't know where the game came from. Let's just leave it at
was
that.
a great influence on many of us. Everything I know about human decency, I learned from Leisure Suit Larry. Leisure Suit Larry, damn it. The other thing that Sierra propped up quite a lot, and the same can be said for many games companies of the era, was guides, companion books. Without the internet, we were lost, and not all of us were in a position to dial the phone numbers. So I think probably the most prestigious-looking one I've got is this McGraw-Hill companion to King's Quest. It was a #1 bestseller. Covers all games, including Game 5 in King's Quest 1 enhanced graphics and sound SCI version. And like many of these games, I've got a similar one for the Ultima series. They get writers, really decent writers, to play through the games and then write everything up as a narrative. So you'll generally have a chapter just running through a really nicely written narrative of the game, and then you'll have then you'll have sort of a Q&A and miscellaneous quests. I mean, this one's told from the perspective. Oh God, that's an unfortunate line. From the perspective of King Graham. No, hang on. This is told. The Perils of Rosella is told from the perspective of her mother, actually. That fishing is said to help relax, calm, and organise the mind. Rosella walked to the end of a long pier, baited the pole's hook with the worm, and cast her line into the sea. She cared not if she caught anything. She just needed a few moments to think of alternatives to swimming to the island. There's the most interesting. There's a very oblique description of a use a thing on a thing until it proves to be a solution problem. There was no bloody reason to go fishing in that game. And similarly, you've got other official guides. This one to Space Quest, and I've got the official Larry guide here. I think this covers 1 through 3. Oh God, Larry 3, one of the best games ever. And then you have the cheaper unofficial guides, which are usually less nicely made, and tend to go with a more direct description rather than the narrativized style. What's quite interesting about the Leisure Suit Larry guide is it also goes into some of the design aspects of the game and tells you something about the history of the company, although it does it from Larry's perspective as though he were an employee of Sierra Online. So yeah, huge industry cropped up there.
There's another funny thing about Larry Leffer talking about hint books. L.O. mentioned that a few times, that it said that Sierra made more money selling hint books. Not make more money, but they sold more hint books than copies of the game. So the game was so heavily copied back then. But as we know, Sierra games were so hard back then to solve. You die in so many various funny and different ways. So they say they sold more hint books for that one. And I don't want to know how many money they make at all for hint books and hotlines or whatever. No? So Sierra games were really, really hard at that time. Everyone knows that who played earlier Sierra games. And I don't want to know how much money they made just by selling hint books and answering questions on the phone and stuff. But that's how things work, I guess, so fine with me.
I wanted to show something for just a second that just was showing off the amount of prolific aspect that Stuart had mentioned. As I showed before, there was, the original release of Ultima 2. And what I think is really funny is that for game collectors, it was very odd because there was a card in here that says that you have one of the very first copies of Ultima 2, which is basically, it says, hey, we screwed up the manual. So here's some corrections for the manual. This card alone drives the price ridiculously because I guess some people say that it proves that this is one of the first copies. But what I wanted to get to is that after that was put out by what they called Sierra Venture, the Sierra Venture series. They re-released it as the Sierra Online version of Ultima 2 in a black box. And then they had a different size map. They then released it again by Sierra in a gray box, which is the same game. They just kept putting it out over and over and over. So on top of coming up with so many games, it was so prolific specifically because they were re-releasing things as well, and they'd sell yet again. In Japan, they put out their own version, which I think this is a legal copy. This is put out by StarCraft.
Mm-hmm. It is illegal.
I think it's legal.
It is legal, right?
So, but
StarCraft is the main publisher in Japan, publishing a lot of games and a lot of Sierra games. Yeah.
Yeah, but there were so many. They would re-release them and make more money over these things, just changing a little bit at a time. And so their prolifics extended to re-releases as well as various titles.
talking about China, so what I liked a lot is they don't only simply re-released it, they really ported them to local, how to say, to local needs or so. So they put in Chinese, Japanese language, whatsoever. My most favorite example for that one is Police Quest 2. This is the Chinese version of the game, and you have to look that one out on YouTube to find a gameplay version of Police Quest 2, because what they did with that game is they do not only add Chinese language to the game, they modified the graphics. They changed it to like a manga style of the game. So if you play the character with like yellow crazy hair, because everything is more manga-like. The eyes are bigger and stuff. If you look out, there's a nice comparison video on YouTube showing the Japanese version compared to the original one, and that is stuff I like. So they really put it to local things, and manga, as we know, is a huge thing over there. So that one looks really fun, and you can play it totally in English or in Japanese. You can type in English, you can type in Japanese. Of course, I'm limited to English at that point, but that is really something I like a lot. And
well, another point related to that and to what Joe said is, in terms of remakes, they definitely not just re-release the same game or even localize it a certain way, but they're one of the first, if not the first, to do remakes of their own games. Like King's Quest 1 got remade. It was still EGA, and they did VGA version of Space Quest 1, and they just Shoot Larry 1, and Quest for Glory 1. And Police Quest 1, did I say that one? So yeah, basically they remade a lot of their own stuff, and they made it a lot better, and they sold it for a cheap price also, because I guess they figured they're just redoing the graphics and the interface, and not redoing the whole game design and puzzles and everything else, but they were pretty cool.
In terms of remakes, and looking at the time, we should probably move on. But to wrap up, there's currently a number of games being produced, both sort of with varying levels of involvement from former Sierra staff, that are carrying on the heritage of Sierra series. Use for example, the new King's Quest that's coming out, that I know some of our members have opinions about. All the way to sort of more spiritual successors, like well, for example, I just started playing the Quest for Infamy games, which is so inspired by the Quest for Glory games. So it's obviously made a mark, that even though the company is now a trading brand of Activision, am I recalling correctly? You can't really escape how much of an influence they have. So does anyone have thoughts on the recent manifestations of all things Sierra? Pascal?
I'll tell you, I'm very disappointed that they waste time making yet more remakes. That's my main thing. Leisure Suit Larry 1, okay, at least they added voice to it, so there was something there, but the Gabriel Knight, to me, was just a huge waste of time. They could have been making some other game, whether Gabriel Knight or something else, just something better. I'm excited to see like some of the stuff that hasn't come out yet, like the space venture from the two guys. That's been in works for a long time, so looking forward to that, but who knows if it'll be any good or when it's even going to come out. But I'm not extremely excited. But nothing has been released that would make me feel like, oh my god, this is back to the old glory days. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
About that Hero U that Corey Cole's working on.
I'm looking forward to that too, but it's also not released yet.
The one I'm looking most for is, to be honest, Space Venture. I'm really looking forward to that one, which the two guys are making, who are responsible for Space Quest, of course, and looking for other ones as well, Hero U, of course. But the ones I've seen so far, I agree to what Stuart said. They were not really. It was not like back then. Not talking about the graphics or so. It's the overall opinion about that. some know already my opinion about the new King's Quest that will come
Go
out.
on, share your opinion about the new King's Quest.
I
Don't hold back.
I won't share it.
Oh, come on.
I will just say I wait for my final judgment. I doubt it will be the kind of game I would like to see a new King's Quest for, but we have to see and wait. But sometimes I think it is better to keep things dead. To be honest, I don't know why Activision has to get Sierra back to life. They could have do something else. If you look at the games they have released so far. The games they're planning to release, I'm not sure if that was overall a good idea. I understand why they do it because it's a powerful name, it's a powerful brand and stuff. But expectations, especially from players from back then, I guess they're not able to meet them. If they do nice games and new players are happy with them, be my guest. It's fine, but I don't think I will be a huge fan. Right now, I think the guys who did games back then and develop new games which are similar to Sierra games. They are the titles we need to take a closer look to. But I don't think Activision Sierra will really do something great there.
I think the reason why they're doing it is pretty clear. Like, recently, the last, 5-10 years, there were a lot of fan remakes of King's Quest games that I think were pretty popular. There's a Silver Lining, which is a new King's Quest game, which I haven't played yet because they haven't finished it yet, but it seems to have been pretty popular. When they gave the license briefly to Telltale, they didn't do anything with it. That was like a big deal. Like, oh my gosh, like something's going to happen here. So I think they saw there's demand for King's Quest. The problem is, like you said, they gave it to these guys, the Odd Gentlemen, I think they're called, who've never done an adventure game before, and I think that's why nobody's really excited about it because it's like, okay, we'll see what happens. But I guess at the end of the day, like, they're making something, and we'll see. Hopefully it'll be, something good. It won't be like Leisure Suit Larry, Magna Cum Laude, or Box Office Bust, or one of those. But we have to wait and see, I guess.
Okay, I think we'll certainly be returning to the glorious and occasionally infamous history of Sierra in future installments. But we're running relatively hard up against time. So I'm going to shuffle us over to our next major topic, which is the mighty text adventure. Now, I think probably my first introduction to text adventures was reading solutions to text adventures in computer games magazines, because particularly in Greek computer games magazines, which I read a lot of, you had very detailed solutions, perhaps because people were sort of solving them in a language that was secondary to them. But I think probably the first proper copy of a text adventure I owned came in the form of this, The Lost Treasures of Infocom Part 2. Note that both the Lost Treasures of Infocom compilations are now available on at least the iTunes store. I'm not sure about the Android store. And I know it's weird typing on a tablet, but get a Bluetooth keyboard or something, because they're absolutely worth having. I'm not sure what the current PC release status of these things in. The Lost Treasures was, I know this isn't really a show and tell, but I just want to be slightly gleeful, because the Lost Treasures, feelies! You got proper feelies! And that was kind of the magic of Infocom, which for many people was synonymous with the text adventure. It certainly was for me for a long time. And you had something of a resurgence of, and you went from sort of the original Infocom releases, and then they sort of were compiled by their publisher, which was I think I've got an Activision compilation here, and I forget how the publishing rights got
Activision actually owned Infocom. Activision bought Infocom, so they were the owner technically, not just the publisher.
Right. Thank you. What happened sort of between the demise of Infocom as a going concern and its purchase by Activision? Was it one of these sort of dying days buyouts, or did it happen relatively early on?
It wasn't that late, but I mean, I guess the popular story is that Cornerstone, which was their database product, and sold for a lot of money, and they put a lot of investment in, was a complete flop, and they lost tons of money based on that. I think some people actually wrote a research paper a couple of years ago saying that wasn't the only reason. There was other reasons also, but bottom line is they didn't manage their business very well, and then they needed desperately a cash infusion, and they got bought out.
I know there were quite a few different editions, even while Infocom was current. I mean, that copy of Blunt Parts is a classic. In the UK, I'm not sure if these ever made it to the USA. In the later years of Infocom, you got these. Unfortunately, I do not have a complete set. These are the Mastertronic Infocom releases. I have Sorcerer, Zork 2, Planetfall, and 2 Zork 3s. But they were ultra cheap little boxes, and there is, I believe, every single Infocom game is available in a numbered box.
I don't think it's everyone. I think it's only some of them, if I'm not mistaken. So your collection may not be that far away from being complete, actually. I think it was the most popular ones released. Yeah, so you might have all of them, but I think. I'm sorry.
No. I'm going to wind up on my spiel soon. And from Infocom, I discovered Legend, which is very well known for Eric the Unready. Meanwhile, again, looking to the UK, there were, or at least that's where I sort of became very aware of this stuff. There were people like Magnetic Scrolls who started producing text and graphics adventures, which you saw a lot of with Legend, and more recently still, I've been following on from the text adventures I love to sort of the online interactive fiction community, and the XYZZY Awards and the IFCom, where you've got some really phenomenal titles, often in form or in TADs, or more recently in Twine, which feels more like a choose-your-own-adventure book or something we briefly had in the late 90s, which was sort of wiki adventures based on HTML. But that's sort of my personal view of the IF market in general. I know Stuart in particular has a great deal more insight to add to it.
Well, my collection is a very large part IF. IF being interactive fiction, which we called text adventures before. Generally, I collect adventure games, but I think my core favorite type of game is really, when you get down to it, the Legend type of games, the earlier ones where you had text where you type in, and there was graphics so you could see what was going on. So I just enjoy that format in general. I think the original topic here was supposed to be like text adventures before or during and after the big box era. So the point I wanted to make was that the big box era for text adventures ended, I think, far before the general big box era did, because at some point, just text adventures were not something that people were buying in the store. So that's I think how the online community that you mentioned, KG, evolved, where it was like interactive fiction is dead, so let's put some stuff out there and let's make our own stuff. And starting around the early 90s, I believe, is when that started to become really popular, right around the time that those Lost Treasures compilations were coming out. I don't know if you check the year on that, what that is. I'm guessing like 93 or 92, something like that. But it was around that time when these were like taking their last hurrah from the commercial perspective. What year is that?
Looking, small print.
93 is my guess.
I find it.
Yeah, so actually I brought a couple things also to show, which are not, I mean, like I could show like, Legend or whatever else, but what I wanted to show really is just some stuff I got from after that period, because I'm still buying text adventures today if I could find people willing to make physical copies of them, which is not so common. I showed already early stuff. I showed Ulysses before, this is the Sierra thing. This is just another early one, just Scott Adams' Adventureland. And Scott Adams was one of the guys who really started this whole industry, and text adventures was his big thing. This is not the original release. The original release just came like in a little, like a tape with like a Ziploc, and that was basically it. But this is like one of the first releases where it's like a tape inside a little styrofoam. So this is really pre-big box also. But I'm not going to show their old stuff. I want to show actually some stuff that is after the big box era, really, if I may.
Lost Treasures was 92, by the way.
All right, I was off by 1 year. So this game here, it's called Once in the Future. This is a big box game. It came out in 1998. And I remember that it was a big deal when it came out because it was published by a company called Cascade Mountain Publishing, which actually I believe was co-founded by Mike and Muffy Berlin, if I remember correctly, to go back to that topic. And the idea was to resurrect commercial publishing for text adventures because it was already dead at that point completely. And this is 1998, so this is not like very far after that Lost Treasures was published. This is like one of the few actual big box games that, and it's not. They didn't. They did the best they could to make this actually a big box game, but it has feelies and stuff in it and other stuff like that. But this is like one of the only ones that I have like that. Here's a copy of Malinch Software's first game, Pentari First Light, that came with a little key inside as a feelie. They put in a folder to be like an old-style folio game, but I'm guessing this is like also 99 or 2000 or something like that. It doesn't say, unfortunately, but it's not that recent, unfortunately. This is something. There used to be a website called feelies.org, which closed down, and the idea behind that was they said basically we're distributing all our text adventures online through this interactive fiction community, and that's not going to change. We're not going to make any more hard copies, but people like the feelies, so we're going to open up a store just to sell feelies for games. And this one here is from a game by Emily Short called Savoir Faire. And basically, if you open it up, it's just feelies. The idea is you download the game. We're not putting the game in here, but here's like whatever feelies they decide to put in. I don't know. Here's some letter with a wax seal. They try to make it cool, but that's all that it was. And I'll show one other thing only, which is just this is a game I just picked up. I happened to find it on eBay called Legacy of the Necromancer. This, I believe, was published in 2000. This is just like a game that someone wrote, and he self-published it, and he sold it mail order. And, since 2000 on, basically, if I buy a text adventure and I'm lucky enough to have a hard copy, this is essentially what it looks like. So they're still out there, but the big box era, unfortunately, is long dead, and we miss it.
I think it's really something that IF, possibly because of its simplicity and its ability to be created by a single individual and still having a meaningful gaming experience, has proved to be one surprisingly enduring for something that's words on a screen. Or perhaps that's not so surprising, given that we're still attached to these book things, despite having these huge game collections. But I've been continuously impressed by, for example, Andrew Plotkin's a favourite designer, IF designer of mine, and you mentioned Emily Short as well. But how do you feel about the sort of Twine thing? Because I've noticed a lot of Twine games have started sort of cropping up, and by extension a couple of other bits of IF, although I suppose it's the Twine games that people tend to argue most about because they are on the borderline edge of being sort of an interactive narrative and a game. But they've started cropping up on sort of major games awards panels just for indie games. Could you sort of potentially see a day when we might be, I don't know, investing in IF compilations?
So it's interesting. I actually bought, first of all, in terms of Twine, I don't think I've played too many of them, but those are the ones where it's like more choose your own adventure-y like, and some of them are hypertext and things like that. And then a lot of them are online, so I've gone online and played with some of them, and they're okay, whatever. But generally, in general, nowadays, there's so much independent output being put out for games, including for IF. So generally what I do is I go look at what you call the X, Y, ZZY awards. I call the XYZ awards, and see what like ranked the top 3 games in the IF competition this year, and I'll try those. I'm not going to try everything. There's just so much out there. But to your point about compilations, there's actually been there's a company out there called the Electronic. It's not a company. It's a foundation. The Electronic Literature Collection, I believe. If you go to their website, you can order for free compilations they've made of different interactive fiction type stuff. Some of them is straight up text adventure. Some of them is more like, hypertext and choose your own adventure, things like that. And the game Facade they have up there, if you remember that game, as an example of interactive fiction also. But they came out with 2 collections already. The first one was on CD, and the second one looks like a CD case. I have it somewhere. You open it up, there's a USB inside of it, like an old phone insert, and that is actually the text. I think that's the games for both 1 and 2. So if anybody's interested in that, you can go online and just basically order it for free. I can pull a link. I think it's Electronic Literature Collection, if I remember correctly. I have to go find it. But that I ordered just free, and yeah, it's collection.eliterature.org is the link. And yeah.
What I like is that the text adventure scene is still active. I like that one. I was never so deep into text adventures. When I started adventuring, it was already with graphics, but the adventure game scene in Germany is strong, was strong the past years, and there are huge groups which are deeply into text adventures still, and they're creating new ones. We have seen Kickstarters with text adventures. We have seen freeware projects, commercial projects. I like that one. And what I like is if you go into modern games, like Deus Ex or games like that. Some of them, if you have to hack a computer system there within the game, then you're back into a text game for a short time. You have to type in commands in the game and stuff like that. I like that when they do that stuff. And some of them have some references back to old games, which most of the younger players don't understand, which is cool. But sometimes you find hints or text files in those systems giving some funny jokes, reference, or whatever back then. I like that thing. And it's still an active topic, as Stuart mentioned. That's nice.
These old text games kind of mean a lot to me because probably some of the first computer game experiences I ever had, and probably a lot of our first computer game experiences were on these. But my brother and I, we used to go to the public library and would buy an hour of time on an Apple II to play Zork 1 for $2, and we would sit there and play Zork 1 in the library. This was probably before we had an option for having one in the house. The first game that I remember us buying was a game called Madness in the Minotaur, and I went over to my father's house Friday and scoured his house for it. He claims that we still have it. Unfortunately, I did not find it, so I'm going to share my screen real quick and show this to you. Can you see my screen? Oh, here we go.
Nope.
Okay, there we go. This is what it looked like back at the time. It was in a baggie. It was a cassette tape game. It was one of the hardest games ever made because the maze, you had to go through a maze to try to defeat the Minotaur, and the maze changed every time you played it. So there was really no way to have any kind of walkthrough for it. And you had to have these items, which are kind of represented on this artwork here, and the location of the items changed every time you played it too. So it was like this ridiculously difficult game. But anyway, of course, after that we ended up getting the Zork, which is what I really wanted to talk about because me and Stuart have had quite the adventure on my copies of Zork in the past couple of days, and the reason is because of this right here, which is a Zork mid-coin. Now, we got these games for Christmas. I was very young. My brother, I wish he was here. He wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here because he wanted to talk about this. But we had to have gotten these for Christmas in like 1987 because we played these games on a Color Computer 3. Color Computer 3 didn't come out until 1986. So it's actually fairly late in the Zork kind of time frame. But what we have is these copies of Zork 1, 2, and 3. They're the big box copies like this. And all three of them are the Color Computer 2 versions of Zork. Okay. Now our copies came with this stupid coin, the Zork mid coin. Now I've had these for I mean, they've been floating around in my life for, what, 30 years-ish? I mean, we've just been, carrying them around from one move to the next. And one of the first posts I made in the Facebook group was the picture of the box, and it included the coin, which I'm learning was very confusing because this coin was only supposed to come with the trilogy release, the Zork trilogy release that came out in 1987 that had both 1, 2, and 3 in it and included this coin, which I'm told was made specifically for that release. Okay, so I was not able to find any real information to confirm why mine had this. The reason I'm learning is because it appears that the color computer version of these games is very uncommon, let's put it that way, because I'm told by Stuart referred me to a nice man named Rick Thornquist, who, as far as I can tell, is basically the Joe Garrity version of Infocom games. Like, he's like the Infocom dude, or like the Pascal version of, Infocom stuff. And so I sent him a message last night at 1:30 a.m. because I wanted to have my stuff together for this thing, because I didn't want to be showing off this coin and everyone be freaking out. And he sent back, he knew the answer. And the reason is because Infocom apparently had a mail order service and gave away these Zork mids if you purchased both Zork 2 and Zork 3 at the same time. And he sent me this ad. Now I'm going to share my screen again, so bear with me here, because this is like mega cool that he sent this to me. This ad is a PDF of like an Infocom newsletter or something, and he sent this ad that says special offer if you own blah blah blah. Get Zork 2 and Zork 3 together, get a free Zorkmid coin right there. So it turns out I called Dad and I'm like, we thought that you got these at Radio Shack, but it turns out he still has the receipt because he never throws anything away ever. That's why it's so hard to find that Menace and Minotaur game I was talking about earlier. He still has a receipt from the mail order for buying this game. So that's where the coin comes from. But then I delved a little deeper into this and asked this nice fellow, how hard are the Coco versions to find? Because I never, and when I was looking for information on this, I never saw any. There's no eBay auctions. It's mentioned on Moby Games, but there's no websites. I told Stuart last night in a text message that I found this forum of Coco enthusiasts, and these guys all said that the Coco versions don't exist, or like a myth. These people, no one freaking knows anything about these Coco versions. Well, he says, Rick says, the Coco versions apparently were only available via mail order. They were not sold in stores. And he says that the best-selling copy of an Infocom game, according to him, was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which only sold 522 copies. So what that's telling me, if I'm reading what he's saying right, and I could not be, but that there's only an existence out there between 19 and 522 copies of these stupid games, according to what he's saying. I don't know if it's true. All I've got to go on is what he's saying.
There was only existence. That was probably much less in existence.
Yeah, anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But Color Computer 2 versions of Zork, didn't know they were that special. I mean, I've just been hanging on to them because I thought the boxes were cool. But anyway, that's my adventure for the past few days on Zork games.
Do you have the receipt readily available to show? Because that's super cool just so you have the receipt.
Yeah, it's at his house. I'm going to have to go over there and just dig through his crap and just like, because that's the only way to prove. The thing is like Zorkmid by itself, I've seen on eBay, is worth about $100 to $150 by itself for a stupid coin, depending on how lucky you get. There's no way to prove that this is a coin that came with this special offer, so it doesn't make it worth anymore. It's just a coin at this point because it's not sealed or anything. But it was an interesting story, and I got to learn something about the history of these games that I've been hanging on to for all these years. It was just cool to me.
Very cool.
Nice, nice, nice.
So who else has text adventure stuff? We have more time for this topic?
Talking about text adventures and talking about Sierra.
She doesn't look like she's made out of text.
Yeah. I'm coming to that in a second because I think this is really an awesome example. What we have here is what a lot of us know is soft porn adventure. This is my framed copy of it. So this is the only text adventure Sierra has ever released. That is the reason why you don't find an high-res in the name of the game. It was released in '81, so during the time when Sierra released all the other adventures, but all the other adventures has high-res in the name. High-res 1, Mystery House, high-res 2, and so on and so on. So this one was text-only and Sierra's text-only adventure game. But the funny thing is that it was like, I guess, 5 years later or so, Las Vegas is the Japan exclusive graphical variant of soft porn adventure. So this is again StarCraft. Joe mentioned StarCraft, the publisher, before. So this is the Japanese version of soft porn adventure, released by StarCraft 5 years later. It was 100% localized, so added Japanese text and so. But, and that is really great enhancement, they put graphics to the game. And I think this is really awesome because Sierra released one game as text only in their complete development history, and a few Japanese guys came over and put graphics to that. So it means no Sierra game was released in text only at all if you look on it on a global perspective, but that one added pictures. I really like the idea that they did it.
That's awesome.
That is nice. And it came it comes with some nudity postcards.
Nudity postcards.
Nudity postcards and some. Yeah, it is on 2 large discs. On 2 large discs and got a manual in there as well.
It's one thing to put a nudie like artwork in there, which is, I mean, it's cool if you're into that sort of thing, I guess. Why would you put a postcard? Who's going to mail that in the mail? I mean, who's going to send that to someone?
I have no idea.
It really is a postcard.
Leisure Suit Larry 3 also came with a postcard. I mean, like, yeah, who'd mail it?
Tonight postcard.
Right.
I've got that in my copy, which I don't have to hand. But that showed the beautiful island of None Tonight, where Larry was living. Yeah, that was not just a cheesecake picture.
Right, but still, who would mail it is my point.
I know, you see a lot of copies without, so...
What's interesting about that one, or what not interesting, it may be funny, the guy who did that was a game that was done by one person, Chuck Benton. He released that before Sierra found out about that and bought it. And we released it under the Sierra the online system label back at that time. But Chuck Benton, I was in contact with him because my soft porn adventure version is signed by him. I was in contact with him, and he didn't know that the game got a graphical release in Japan. I like stuff when that happens. So if you can actually tell the developer something they didn't know about their game, I like stuff like that. Don't happen that often that I'm able to tell someone something about her games that they don't know, but I like it.
Very cool. So I want to mention one other thing which I think is important to this conversation, which is how, in terms, I think it ties a lot of the different things we talked about together. So Infocom, when they did their text adventures, they had a system called Z-Code for portability. So basically, they wrote all of their games on a virtual machine, and they had an interpreter that translated the virtual machine to all the different platforms, including Coco 2 and 3, and including every single other obscure platform out there, K-Pro and DEC Rainbow, and who knows what else. And then eventually, that format was reverse engineered by enthusiasts, and they use it to build the language in Form, which is what a lot of the text adventures that are written today are written on. So a lot of that stuff is based on the same exact format, the same exact engine, basically, that that Infocom uses, although they didn't actually have the development tool. They basically wrote their own version of the development tool that used the same virtual machine. So Inform was one of the very popular ones. TADS, I think KG mentioned, was another popular one that came around the same time. Actually got recently this game, Deep Space Drifter, which came with, you could order it, I guess, with one of the TADS distributions. There's a TADS text adventure on it. But those two are the really popular ones for quite a number of years, and then there's a few other ones that came out recently. But it's interesting to see the link between, I guess, the old school stuff and the new school stuff, so to speak. It still uses the exact same technology as it did back then. Obviously, there's some new stuff like Twine that's a little bit different and more advanced and more graphical, but a lot of it's still the same.
I think current versions of TADS can also have graphics shunted into them. I may be completely wrong on this. It's a while since I tried to do anything with TADS.
I think you're right.
We are sort of approaching the end of our time slot, which is a shame because there's a lot we haven't touched on with text adventures. We haven't touched on magnetic scrolls or any of the sort of British wave of text adventures, which were completely different. And I have a small stash of the formats like C64 and BBC, and I think a lot of them never ever left the UK. So one day we should return to that. We never even looked at The Hobbit, for crying out loud. And we also didn't have time to contemplate the connection between text adventures, muds and mushes, and the eventual rise of the MMO in both boxed and unboxed versions. So there's a lot for us to return to. So, and fortunately, that does mean we have more material for when we run out of new ideas. Finishing up, unless anyone has any dramatic shock cliffhangers to leave us on regarding text adventures, I think
just a suggestion. Could we do the same thing you did Sierra Special? Could we do that same stuff for other companies too? That you mentioned.
If you've seen the suggestion list lately, you'll see that I've loaded a bunch of Lucas Special, Origin Special, and so on Special into it. Companies with choice.
Legend Special, Magnetic Scroll Special.
Absolutely.
Melbourne House Special.
Davilex.
Level 9 Special.
I think we can get a lot of mileage out of this format. And on the subject of mileage, we have 10 minutes left, which gives us a bit of time for show and tell. And as I am currently in control of the mic, here's mine. An adventure game. Sorry about the lighting in here. Gone dark during the course of this episode. This is Dragon Sphere. This is sort of towards the end of the adventure game era. But '94, you still had a lot of strong stuff coming out, and I originally fished this out a while ago when it looked like we were going to be doing an unusual boxes special. That never happened. But this is certainly an unusual box in that it isn't even a book. Oh, and here are some of my notes when I was trying to work out which of the sprites lied and which told the truth. Dear gods, I hate versions on that 2 guards logic problem. But
Can you show that a little better? Because it looked like a book, but I've never seen that version before. The one I have is a box.
This might just be the European release. This is definitely the European release, and it comes all book-like.
It's one of the European releases. No, it was released in big box over here as well, but
I have seen a box version as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
This was the first one I got. It had full speech, although that was a bit crackly. Also had very nice support for the Roland SCC1, if I recall correctly, and I remember jury rigging a Sound Blaster Pro and an SCC1 to work simultaneously, which was some sort of godlike feat as far as I can work out. You have no idea how long I spent making that boot disc. But yeah, Dragon Sphere. A little bit weak, as you can see from the screen. You can't see from the screenshots, never mind. But actually, you can get it on Good Old Games now. I don't think it's, in terms of narrative, it's sort of King's Quest inspired, and I'm not super into that kind of fantasy, that sort of fantasy narrative, which might be why I find it a weak. But strong puzzle content, pleasant graphics, slightly mere voice acting, but it all seemed impressive at the time. And my last thing is entirely gratuitous. It has absolutely sod all to do with gaming. But look, I have an Iron Maiden promotional mouse mat.
Oh dear.
So KG, on the Dragon Sphere, you didn't mention there was an amazing twist in that game. I won't give it away, but a really good twist in the middle of the game. And I thought it was a really good game, actually. I don't know if you remember that. But.
100% agree, and it is free available on GOG, so if anyone hasn't played it, go to GOG, grab it for free, give it a try.
I should certainly have a replay. I last played it when I was like 14, so...
So this was like, okay, 10 years ago, but I like the Microprose adventures a lot. So,
anyone else have a final item? It can be either related to a subject. It's just show a thing. Go on.
Is my microphone working now?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, I got something. Yeah, Joe is not here, but I found something in my Wing Commander box. This one. Because I don't know if you know about this, but.
Nice.
So I wonder.
So you won that, Roy, right?
Wait a sec. Here's the origin. So it's original from Origin. I found it in the box because we should have talked about we would talk about games we never played but were willing to want to play. And I checked out the box and I found this inside and I thought, well, that's funny, but. So that was my little thing I wanted to show.
Oh, that's interesting.
What did you find inside? That was just the outside of the box, right? Was it the inside?
Yeah. It was in the inside. I can.
You found the outside thing inside the box. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Someone put it inside.
Yeah. For the rest, it's just the normal booklets and CD stuff and.
So you were a bit late for that, right? Or did you? Send it in and won actually the Russian fighter trip?
No, I don't think I ever sent it in. I can see if it's still. Yeah, I can found the.
Wasn't there a guy? There was a guy with a pizza coupon or so he found in a box and sent in 20 years later or so and got it.
Oh, it was LGR.
Dear Richard Garrett, will you please honour this old coupon?
Hey again, David, who was it?
Clint from LGR. He did a video on that.
Yeah.
On the I think it was the Red Baron pizza or something.
Okay. That was nice.
Yeah, actually, the coupon actually worked.
Yeah, it worked. He bought the pizza, and he even told like the guy besides him, I think. It was like 17-year coupon that he found on a computer game.
I got a quick thing in the mail. This was a couple of weeks ago, but I got my copy of Future Shock. Still see it. And what's interesting is the top, they've got this stamp. And I'm seeing this in a lot of the older Bethesda things. Me and Stuart were talking about this with Arena one time, that there was a stamp on top. There must be some production reason why they were stamping the top of these things. I don't know. It's like an ink stamp. Really, really bizarre.
My copy of Daggerfall, which is missing its sleeve and everything, but that has that stamp. So.
Yeah, seems to be on these ones they did that had the sleeve before they went away from the sleeves. But anyway, it's still sealed. It was a cool pickup. I paid like $10 for it.
Nice.
Katie, I want to mention for the Dragon Sphere, I got the same box kind of release for Discworld, for the first Discworld. So I was trying to find out if they did more releases like that, but I was not successful on that. I did not find any information.
Yeah, Pascal, isn't it the Dutch release from Discworld in that book shape?
It could be.
Because I have a similar one here of Kingdom of Magic.
Okay.
Kind of
the same
thing, but it's a Dutch release, so it's Dutch manual. It's all in Dutch. Game is in English, but manual itself is in Dutch. And Discworld is like that here as well. It
could be. If we're talking about right now, I think I remember. Yeah, the Discworld was the Dutch one. Yeah.
It's HomeSoft. It's a local distributor from the Netherlands and Belgium. They did a bunch of these.
UK version of Discworld was big box with the little death pewter computer guy in Houston.
This is Alien Legacy by Sierra, but it's also the home top of this similar kind of design.
Were those popular like in Europe? Because I've never seen any of those until you guys are showing them now. Is it a lot of companies doing that at the same time?
It's only for Belgium and the Netherlands. It's Dutch manual only. So local distributor will use to do this kind of release.
I think I've seen a couple more UK releases that were packaged like Dragonsphere, but I'd have to do a bit of research to recall what they were.
My Dragonsphere version is the UK version 2, I guess. It would be nice to see if the Return of Phantom has got such a release as well. Never found that out.
They have this small logo. I don't know if it's very small on the side. Home top, little thing. That's their typical release for 93, 94.
What do you even call these book style releases? We've got. I mean, they're not folios. They're.
I guess they call it book style releases.
Yeah, I guess they are now. It doesn't quite trip off the tongue, does it? We're going to need to invent some terminology.
I mean, that's one of the most one of the points if you try to do a research on things. You know, what is called a big box. If you go on Moby Games, which I really use a lot, when they put in like the titles or names for the covers, they put on box on everything. But if you do a research, you find so many things which aren't boxes at all. So that is hard to define. What is a box? Which is a big box, thin box, open box, whatever box, 2-piece box, 1-point box? I don't know. DVD case, is that a box? Yes or no?
Only if it has a slip case.
Exactly.
Well, I found like seeing that in this conversation we talked about a lot of Japanese stuff, Japanese or Oriental stuff. I actually found in a flea market like these copies of popular games with another names. And they're like in this weird format. I don't know what else you call it. I think it's the opposite. Oh, oops. I think it's the opposite of big boxed games, but like this is the whole package for the game, and some of them are even smaller. And like there's like this opening right here, where you just put the CD in there, and yeah, that's about the case for it. And they're all like remixes of popular games. Like I think this is. The name of this game is like whatever GPX, which is like Wipeout. This is Juiced, which has the same. This is Crazy Taxi. I never saw Crazy Taxi with a guy being rammed by the police, but this is Crazy Taxi.
Do you think they're legit?
I guess those are bootlegs.
Yeah, but I never actually tried them. It's funny, but I'm a little bit scared because it says on the back of them it says fatalities, gameplay, and keyboard friendly. I don't know if that's something to be aware of, but it's like
you're not responsible for viruses you receive by installing.
Yeah, I know.
This goes back to the sort of interesting bootlegs we had in Cyprus. You do see some fascinating.
I don't think these are bootlegs, but in Japan it's the same with the PlayStation. They release them way cheaper and in simple styles without as many stuff.
For example, I think that this one is like a bootleg of Red Alert 2 because it has like Red Alert 2 right there. But I mean, it says that it's compatible with Windows 98, but it says all the requirements, and so I think it's and it has like official.
Sorry, David, we'll have to take this to the after party. We're at 2 hours, and I'm wrapping us up. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. It's been a really interesting session, and I'll see you all for drinks and nibbles after. Peace out.
Thanks, KG.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.